Buckle up, sports fanatics. This is the Sports Chasers Podcast, your HQ for in-depth sports talk. Join host Kevin L. Warren and crew as they dissect the hottest stories, ignite debates, and bring you closer to the action. From locker room whispers to expert takes, we cover it all. It's game time, so strap in and grab a drink. The Sports Chasers Podcast starts right now.
Hey, good evening. Hope everybody's having a happy Monday. Happy Monday to everybody, man. Excuse me, I'm saying Monday. It's Tuesday. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit behind in the week. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Chasers Podcast coming to you. We're not live, man, but this is pre-recorded. We're going to talk some hockey today. And yes, our main man is back. Dan K is back in the building. Dan, what's up? What's going on, man? How are you tonight?
Doing good. It's back, great to be back, dealing with a bunch of real life stuff, but it's good to be back and be it on, even though it's pre-recorded. It's good to talk hockey and talk sports again.
So to all of those that missed Dan and criticized me, rightfully so, I kept telling you I am not the hockey aficionado, and the hockey aficionado will be back, and he's back, as you can see, and I'm glad to have him back. We miss you, Dan. Before we get into all the other stuff, make sure you like, click, and subscribe to our channel. Make sure you hit the bells for all the notifications. And also on the podcasting side, y'all give us that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5-star review. 5-star review. Love us or hate us. Let us know how we're doing. And we do answer back sometimes. We love the banter. We love the, he can't read. I'm working on that. And so I really appreciate all the comments. Got me a speaking book. So I'm working on it. So thank you for making me better, because that's what we all should be doing in life. We should all strive to do better in life. Also, I want to mention merchandise. I see Dan's awesome logo in the background. So guess what? We got these nice trucker hats that you can go to our website, go to sportschaserspodcast.net, and hey, support us. Grab one of these hats. You can get a polo shirt. You can get, what else you can get on it, Dan? A sweatshirt. You can get
hoodies.
Good quality stuff. No junk. So please check us out. Support us. And we're good. So Dan, what's up? What's going on in the world of hockey? I think I'll take it away first, and I'll let you get the rest. Hockey looks like they signed a CBA today. So they're not going to have no labor difficulties only through the 2029-2030 season. So the next 5 years, they should be good. And this is from the Associated Press, and it says the NHL and the NHLPA officially ratify a 4-year CBA extension, locking in labor stability through the 2029-2030 season. Right. So this starts, the collective bargaining starts in 2026. The agreement details begins implementation in the upcoming season, and some of the structure, roster and game structure updates. Regular season increases from 82 to 84 games. Dan, I got to ask you about that. What do you think about that? We'll get to that. The preseason is trimmed from 6 to 4, so it looks like they gave back 2 games. I wonder why they went to 2 more, but we'll talk about that too. Then we got the contract overhaul. Maximum term now is 7 years for current team extensions, and then 6 years for free agent contracts. And then you got the elimination of deferred salary and a new playoff salary cap to close the loopholes that Dan has talked about previously on this show. And then you got the operational and policy changes. No mandatory dress code. Players have more freedom. So I guess we're going to have the NHL players ripping the runway, just like the NBA dudes do and the NFL guys do when they come to work. And then you got the full-time traveling backup goalie for each team, phasing out the e-bug usage. And then you got the negotiation tone, and that's all the rest. Dan will take it from there. Dan, your thoughts on the new CBA, sir?
Well, it's good that they got this done and ratified and passed and all that good stuff. There's only a couple really big things, I think, with this new CBA. Like, yeah, they go to 84 games. Well, guess what? They're not going to play a bunch of meaningless. It's like the NFL. They went to 17 games, got rid of a game in preseason. Same thing here. They got rid of 2 games in the preseason, just added them to the regular season. So not a big deal. Like, The only difference is your players are actually going to play 2 more games opposed to like in the preseason where you have, a bunch of the guys in the AHL playing games, and then
Point.
you're good. Your good starter players play a couple, so not a big deal. The e-bug thing, I think that's a good thing. I'm wearing the hat and T-shirt of the only team I think ever that has lost to an e-bug. That came in when the game actually mattered, and they still celebrate them in Carolina country.
Yes,
the other thing that out of this CBA that I really liked is it used to be like Evander Kane this year didn't play, I think, a single game for Edmonton. But once the playoff starts, he came back. Well, what's that mean? Well, playoff salaries don't matter this past season. Same thing with Florida. I think they had, was it Ekblad was on, it might have been suspension or long-term or IR or whatever. That's how they got Marchand. Well, the way that they're doing this now is in the playoffs, there's a salary cap too. So the team you put on the ice has to fall under that monetary amount. And, we talked about this probably 3 years now when Vegas won the cup. Mark Stone went on the IR.
Right.
And, they were able to, bring in some people that otherwise they couldn't if that money was on the books. So, hey, kudos for the NHL trying to, tighten it up and close the loophole where teams were exploiting. Because, even before that, Kucherov was out for the longest time. Same thing. And then all of a sudden he comes back. And you got these extra guys on your roster now that if you tried to field it, the last 3-4 years, if there was this CBA, that wouldn't happen because they'd be over the cap and they couldn't do it.
So basically, you got guys you won't be able to sandbag no more. Sandbag's probably.
Well, you can't have them on long-term injury reserve, for half the season or the whole season or whatever, and then magically they pop back up in the playoffs.
And they be eligible for the playoffs, correct?
Yeah, so that kind of thing, that's good. I think the other thing that was kind of pertinent out of this, it doesn't mean a lot to, a lot of people outside of the sport, but they made a commitment to 2026 for the Olympics and 2030. And that's a big thing with the players. They want to represent their country and play, best on best. We saw what that was like.
Awesome.
Last year. Yeah, it was awesome. So that kind of thing, the deferred payments, I kind of get that. It's, you don't want to have Bobby Bonilla Day, in the NHL where you're paying people, 25 years after they retired.
Shout out to Bobby Bonilla.
But I actually looked into that and it was really wild. So whoever owned the Mets at that time, I forget who it was.
He's a high school alumni of mine, Fred Wilpon. He went to Lafayette High School in Brooklyn along with me.
So he knew Madoff. So I guess the whole thing was, if we take that $6.5 million instead of paying him in it, we deferred, $1 million for the next 25 years, and we invest that $6.5 million, that will make more money than we have to pay these guys for the next 25 years.
But they about one thing.
Yeah. So, that was interesting. I kind of enjoyed that. And, the other thing is like you were talking about with the contracts, like the big thing was, these guys get in the league and they never really get to exercise their rights for free agency. Cause most guys play 10 years, you get your rookie contract. And then if you re-sign for 8 years, you're pretty much it's the same organization. So they bumped it down from 8 years to now 7. If you re-sign with your own team, and then you got, if you sign with another team outside of your organization, it's 6 years, which I get it. You want player movement. You want them to be able to move around. But, like I said, kudos for them getting this done, getting it, ratified and moved on so that you don't have to worry about it.
That's good. That's good. That's definitely good. Well, what you're saying with that. So there won't be no, as we know, there's in the other sports, and we'll talk about that when we come back on Monday. In the other sports, there's some labor rumbling, and we won't get into it today. You got the WNBA. There's this bubbling and rumbling.
Yeah, I got thoughts on that too.
We'll get the MLB. Theirs is not as bad as the WNBA, but there's two, and the NBA. Well, I don't want to give it away, but the NBA, man, there's a reason why these owners are selling these teams now. I didn't understand the whole apron thing. Now understand it. We'll talk about that on Monday because this is the NHL, not the NBA.
Yeah, why did Luka get traded? Why? Yeah, well, we know.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, yeah. Because Dan,
I know. We'll just save that for Monday.
Go ahead. Because we were screaming and yelling. It's like, yo, there's a reason why Luka got traded, bro. And the teams is like, yo, he's smoking and in the word of DA, eating pierogies. Hey, man, you got to go. You're not worth it. We're not going to pay you, man. So, but we'll talk about that on Monday. More on the NHL. Go ahead, Dan. What you got for us next here?
Well, I mean, we can get kind of a recap of the whole playoff thing.
Yes.
I was close. I had Florida in the finals, and I thought either Colorado or Dallas was going to be the team that came out. But, Edmonton, they pretty much spanked Dallas 4-1. Rantanen, didn't have the magic that he did against Colorado.
Nope.
And, this final, looking through, the whole series, from round one to the Cup Finals. Really, Florida, their biggest opponent was Toronto. And, I know some of the message boards that I'm on, were like, oh, we gave him the hardest time. He still lost in the second round. You still haven't made it out of the second round. Get over it.
Yep. Again.
But, Florida is a different animal. What they did to Carolina, they play kind of like Carolina does, but they're more physical than Carolina. And literally, they blew them out of the barn. 4-1 series. Carolina really didn't have a lot for them until somebody figures out how to play, bully hockey like Florida. They're going to be around for a while.
I'll say this, Dan, and Steve Levy made a great point. I know you'll get to the finals between them and Edmonton here in a little bit. Steve Levy, I don't know if you heard Steve Levy. He said Steve Levy basically said that this was a 4-2 sweep. I don't know if you heard that, and he basically was breaking it down and saying how, yeah, Edmonton won those 2 games, but it never felt like this series was close. And like you said, and I said it the night before they clinched that Monday, I went on to say, just like you said, they play bully hockey, man, and they just check you to death, and they just finish checks off, and they are just relentless, man. And Edmonton, again, I think they're a great team, man, but Florida punishes their opponents into submission.
And one of the greatest clips I saw, they had a thing of Paul Maurice on the bench, and I forget what series it was. It might have even been last year
when he was yelling and cursing at him.
And he's like, "What are we doing here? Why are we trying to play fancy? Dump the puck in, run them into the boards. So when we get the games 5, 6, and 7, they don't want to compete, and that's what they do. They beat you up. They beat your defenseman up, and." That's that. Like you said, this wasn't to me. This could have been over in 4. So game 1, Edmonton wins 4-3 in overtime.
In overtime.
And then Marchand puts the team on his back in game 2, gets them the victory, Florida 5-4 in overtime, double overtime. And then game 3, Panthers spank them when they get back to Florida 6-1. And then game 4, if I remember correctly, I think it was Bennett. It was one of them that rang one off the post.
Yes.
Was a hair from like bar down, and they went the other way and ended up scoring. And they won 5-4 in overtime. So you were tied 2-2, and then they go back to Edmonton. Florida whoops up on them 5-2. They go back to Florida. Florida beats them 5-1. Sam Reinhart, he's got 4 goals. I mean, it's just that team. And I'm trying to think. I saw where they have 9 guys on that team, core guys, like your important players, star players, locked up till 2030. So they're not going away. They just need to patch in here or there. You know, like Nate Schmidt, he signed with the Mammoth in the offseason as a free agent, so they lost him. But they brought in Jeff Petrie. You know, so it's going to be plug and play. You know, we'll get some guys. They're going to leave, and then we'll just, you know, we'll pick up some other players to fill that void. But the main guys, the main players, like I told you, like after they won the cup, you know, we were talking, and I said they're going to sign all 3 of them clowns.
I
And you're like, no, and I'm like, I'm telling you, Bill Zito, I think his name is, the GM for them, is going to open the checkbook, and they sign Marchand, they sign Bennett, they sign Ekblad. So it's like these guys know where they want to be, and there's a lot to be said for culture in the locker room.
Say it again, Dan. Yes.
So you can look at football, you can look at hockey, you can look at baseball, you can look at basketball. If you have the culture in the locker room where everybody's held accountable, and like especially this team, like they played for each other. Like Marchand, he's one of the better players in the league. He was on the 3rd line. So he accepted that. He said, okay, my minutes are going to be down a little bit, but I'm going to play my hardest because I want to win. And that's what everybody else wants to do. So if we all do that, hey, guess what? We're gonna be able to win. The way we play, the goaltender we have, absolutely, we're gonna win. And you know, I know they just won this year, but I have them as the favorite going in next year. So just because like the way they play, nobody's figured out how to out physical check them. They're relentless on the forecheck, and they have heart that is, you know, way off the charts compared to some of the other sports. Like, I'm trying to think what Chuck had. Like, I knew something was up with him, just the way he was playing for the last couple of rounds, and it ended up being like, I forget what muscle it was, but it was torn off the bone, and he also had like a hernia.
He had like an abductor, something. I forgot.
Yeah, something. It was something, but obviously it torn off the bone. But yet he played every game. And you know, hockey players are a little bit
built differently.
Yeah, the mindset's a little bit differently. You know, I'm not going to play if I can't skate. If I can skate, I'm going to play. Just like he did the year before with 2 years ago when they lost in the finals and he had a broken sternum. He played until they told him he couldn't play. So, I don't know, man. It's going to be really hard to beat them with the style they play, the punishment they put on your players, the absolute goaltending genius with Bobrovsky back there. It's insane how good that team is, and they're not going to, this ticker saying they got 12 guys signed from last year's team, so they can figure it out.
Even more than what you said. I just pulled that up and put it in the thing, and I think that's amazing, and it also talks about culture and like you said, culture in the locker room. We had a guest on here a couple weeks ago, Steve Fiziak, who's a MLB broadcaster, NCAA football and basketball broadcaster, and he does NBA. And he talked about the 2015 Royals when he covered that team, when he was the play-by-play guy, and how they loved one another and how they bought into what the manager had, going on. I forgot the Royals manager at the time. And, he talked about Eric Hosmer and some of the other Royals at the prominent time. But that team, that 2015 team that wound up beating the Mets in the gentleman's sweep, 4-1 in the World Series that year. He just talked about how they loved one another in that locker room. And he says that conquers every and anything, because you'll do anything for it. And the fact that these guys bought into this contract, Dan, their contracts, and say, yo, we want to run it back. We're going to do it again.
Yeah, like you just look at this: 8 years, 64 million; 8 years, 48 million; 6 years, 32 million. They could have got more money to leave.
Yes,
but they didn't want to because they know what they have there, and they Paul Maurice probably went, the majority of his coaching career without even sniffing a Stanley Cup. But it's a testament. Like, I love listening to his post-game pressers.
I think he's awesome, man.
Yeah, and he's a great human, loves his players, and you can tell his players love him too. And it's just, when it comes to coaching and motivation, is probably 9/10 of getting them going and getting them to play a certain way, and they all buy into it. Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a real good chance they're going to be back there next year. And that hasn't really happened. I want to say in the 80s, maybe, the Islanders and the Oilers, when you had the Trottiers, Potvins, those guys for the,
Mike Bossy.
Yeah, Mike Bossy and all those guys for the Islanders, the Sutter brothers, and then, the Oilers with, Gretzky, Anderson, Messier, Fuhrer, there hasn't been like there's been a couple back-to-back champions.
Yeah.
But like to get 3 or maybe 4 in a row, it's been a long time.
It's a lot of hockey, and that's a lot of physicality on your body, man. So and I'll tell you, because I those that don't know, I actually live down in South Florida. I got, I think I have a pulse of what's going on. This team, when I moved down here 10 years ago, was about to leave. Nobody was going to the arena where they was at, whatever it's called the Amarant Arena now. But nobody was going to games. They had that little scandal with, what was it, Joe Quenneville when he was coach. I think he was coach there for like a year, and then he had to resign.
I don't even know that he made it through a year.
Yeah, and so I had to check.
We'll talk about him in a little bit.
And they was talking about moving this team. And look what happens when you reinvest in the community. When Barry Zito took over, reinvest in the community. Getting the buy-in. They had this. I don't live too far from their former what's that, practice facility. They have a brand new spanking facility that they redid in Fort Lauderdale 2 years ago, which is beautiful. And you hear one of the players in the I forgot which one of the players was saying that how this organization, this franchise has, they spare nothing when it comes to making sure that they have the best, when it comes to making sure that this team is prepared to play hockey and do hockey and so forth for their fans. So, hey, expansion teams, they go through their highs and lows. One thing about any other sports, man, you have to put a winning product on the ice, court, football field, baseball diamond, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, you'll fill the building when you're winning.
Yeah, but if you just pocketing the money, Pittsburgh Pirates, I'm sorry, Dan. This is what you're going to get. I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to shoot you like that, dog. But if you just pocket in the money, man, and baseball is a whole nother thing where we have to probably just take a look at, because they need what you said, a floor, not a ceiling, a floor. They need
Floor.
They
You
need
have to spend so much.
certain amount of money, because what they're doing is ridiculous, man. But anyway, shout out to the Florida Panthers, man, for what they're building, what they have built, and they win 2 back-to-back. They won back-to-back cups, and like I said, I'm with Dan, man. I'm looking for them to win number 3. Another parade on A1A down.
But here's the thing to speak to the culture, though. When they won the cup, the captain goes and gets the cup, right? So Barkov went and got the cup.
Mm-hmm.
When was the first guy to skate the cup around that had won it before? It was probably 9 or 10 in.
Mm-hmm.
They made sure everybody that hadn't won a cup got to skate with the cup first.
See how it feels.
To have that initial feeling of, you won, you did it, blah, blah, blah. And, you got to love that, as an organization, that your captain and your veterans know, or not even veterans, but guys that have been there and had won it before are like, hey, no, we're going to make sure that these guys get a chance to skate with it first, because we've had that opportunity. So I thought that was really cool of them.
Yeah, absolutely. What I want to ask you, Edmonton, where do they go from here?
Depends on what McDavid wants to do. Does he want to stay? Is he tired of losing? And it's interesting, kind of on that thing, because I talk all the time about the core 4 eating up all the money in Toronto, so it's hard to put a team on the ice that is competitive on all facets: forwards, defense, goalies. And they re-signed Bouchard. I forget what his deal was. Let me go up here. But a lot of the reason why they gave him the contract they did, because Carolina, that I heard, wanted to give him an offer sheet, kind of like last year,
right?
That they had happened to them with St. Louis, with Holloway and Brumberg. So they kind of signed him they overpaid him,
right,
a little, to make sure that the average salary would keep Carolina from being able to do it. But for them, it's like, do you run it back with the same goaltending?
Well, I think that was part of their, not Achilles heel, but I don't know. I wouldn't. I would see if I can make an upgrade, if anything.
Yeah. So, you got to figure out the goaltending. You got Bouchard, you got Nurse. How are you going to fill in the rest of that defense to get better? That's a thing for them. And then, there's very few players in the NHL that I deem as a problem or a diva like we do in some of the other sports. But Evander Kane's right up there. And, granted, he didn't play all year and came back for the playoffs. But they kind of, I think, figured that out. And we're like, yeah, we're just going to move you to Vancouver. So took some money off the books for that. So I don't know, man. It's hard with them because they got to shore up the defense. It really hurt them. Yeah, I mean, I don't care.
None other than Cheryl Pounder.
TSN, shut up. But like, you had Kane there eating up some of the salary or whatever, but didn't really play into the playoffs. And Hyman, I'm sorry, that might have been a completely different series if he doesn't break his wrist the series before that.
Right. I noted that. You're absolutely correct.
I mean, that's a huge part. Like the dude stands 3 feet from the blue paint and doesn't move, and just pots 50 goals a year. So yeah, they missed him. Does he make that big of a difference? I still think Florida probably wins, but it is what it is. You want your best players on the ice, and he couldn't go. You know, believe me, if he could have got his hand with the cast on into a glove, he probably would have played.
Correct.
But yeah, it's one of those things where they have to really figure out, all right, what's our goaltending? How are we going to fill in the defense? You know, they lost a couple guys that were bottom six forwards. You know, what was it? I think Kapanen, I think he resigned, but you know, Kane's gone. Arvidsson, that was there just for the year, he's gone now to the, you know, so it's like, you know, how do they fill that in? And, you know, does McDavid resign? Or, you know, because I heard, you know, possibility of him going to, you know, the Rangers. So,
You know, I heard that last week or something like that. I said, man, that, oof, let me get my jersey ready.
yeah, I mean, that brightens the lights, and, you know, Madison Square Garden's bright already.
Yeah.
But you bring him in, oh my goodness. But that's kind of like the Gretzky thing, right? He won when he was in Edmonton, but he also had a better supporting cast. And back then, you know, it's funny. You look at the teams and the players that were on Gretzky's teams, and it's like, at the time, you're just like, oh, you know, whatever. But then, you know, Paul Coffey, you know, Messier.
Yeah, he had a supporting cast.
Oh, man, they're all Hall of Famers.
Right.
Now, you know, but you look back at that and you just, like, at the time, you're just like, okay, whatever. But yeah, they were just dominant.
So, I mean, yeah, that's a rumor that we got to stay on top of it. But man, I think he's awesome player, man. Awesome player, man. So, anything else, Dan? I got the free agency ticket looming down here.
Well, I just wanted to touch on real quick. So, you know, end of season, we got the coaching carousel, right?
Yeah.
So Boston fired Montgomery, and they hired Marco Sturm, a former player. The Blackhawks, they got rid of Luke Richardson and hired Jeff Blashill. Philadelphia fired Tortorella, your guy, and brought in Rick Tocchet, which I think that's a great move for them. He played there. He understands Philly.
He plays there, and he understands Philadelphia culture.
And he doesn't put up with BS.
Yeah.
And then the Ducks, they got rid of Greg Cronin. To be honest, I really didn't know who he was. But guess who they brought in? The aforementioned Joe Quenneville. So
where has Joe Quenneville been at, though, the last?
That's a good question. I know when he got released from Florida, I think he probably just didn't do much of anything.
That was in 1920 season. So he's been chilling. Okay.
Yeah, he's been hanging out.
Yeah.
Then we got the Rangers. They got rid of Lavalette and brought in the Penguins, Mike Sullivan. Seattle got rid of Blasma and brought in Lane Lambert. And just as we said, the Penguins got rid of Sullivan. They brought in Dan Muse, who used to be the assistant for the Rangers. And then the Canucks, you know, Rick Tocchet didn't up his contract, so they brought in Adam Foote. And then Dallas fired Peter DeBoer. They're yet to be determined on that, on who's going to replace him. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. Dan said he'll be right back. So the NHL, they have a lot going on as far as the contracts and you know, the free agency. As you got down here, the Panthers, they locked up Reinhardt. We talked about that. The Bruins, they re-signed Jeremy Swayman. The Oilers, they grabbed Tyler Bertuzzi from the Leafs for 4 years, $22 million. The Caps, they got Jacob Markstrom in goal, and Blake Wheeler retires after 16 seasons. The Avalanche, they add Adam Henrique for 3 years, $12 million. The Senators, they keep Shane Pinto for 2 years, $5.2 million.
My apologies. I had to shoo the Jehovah's off my doorstep.
Yeah, man, it's 8:00 at night, man.
I know. Why? I don't understand. There's only so many spots, and you're out there recruiting people to take your spot.
Dan.
Just saying. Don't get it. But like, there's been a little bit of buzz on the free agent market right now, and some of the big names are off the table. Like, supposedly Marner really didn't. Mitch Marner from Toronto didn't really have negotiations with Toronto most of the season, I guess, from what I was seeing. And the only reason I could fathom why Vegas traded Nicholas Waugh to Toronto for the rights to Marner, because it was kind of like a sign and trade.
Right.
Basically, they signed Marner, then traded him to Vegas, and Vegas sent Nicholas Waugh. And if they would have waited 24 hours, if that's where he wanted to be, they could have got him. It probably had to do with salary too. Like moving Waugh's money off the books was able to have them be able to land Marner, because I think he's at $12.5 million a year.
Okay.
And just want to say, he's going to be great in the regular season. No doubt about it. But in 6 years, he has 6 playoff goals.
So he's Mr. September through October through April.
Yes. So we'll see. Different setting, maybe that changes a bit. But that being said, $12.5 million, that's a lot of money. But you had him sign, and then the other kind of real big signing, I guess, would be Ehlers from Winnipeg. He signed with the Carolina Panthers, which is kind of a big deal, because he's kind of like a Barkov type of player, I would say, like kind of 200-foot guy, good on, both ends of the ice, can get you points, win you face-offs, that kind of thing. And, with the kind of run that they had with Renton not wanting to be there, blah, 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 Southern market, etc. It's good that, they were able to land him. They also were able to re-sign Stankoven that they got in the Renton trade. So Carolina, it's interesting with them because they lost Brett Burns to Colorado on a 1-year deal. But they were able to bring in New York Rangers, Keandre Miller.
Saw that.
And I was just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that because, with you guys being Ranger fans, so I paid.
Yeah.
Here we go again. Shut up. But, they got Ehlers for 6 years at $8.5 per year. So that's not terrible. But then, bringing in Keandre Miller, I think it's 8 years, $48 million or something like that. Hopefully he can play with Slavin or somebody of that, stature,
right,
that'll improve his game. But yeah, I was just kind of shook my head at that one. I'm like, you guys need to get rid of him. You did, but I'm not rooting for the Pens. I'm rooting for the Canes. And I was like, damn it. It is what it is. But, you had them, and then, you had Brock Nelson resign with Colorado. Dmitry Orlov that played for Florida last year. He ends up signing with San Jose, a 2-year deal. So, you got some movements and some guys re-signing. Excuse me. Some guys moving on. But it's early yet. Like, My whole thing is I've been looking to see what the Penguins are doing. Dude, we had like 3 first-round draft picks this year with all the trades Dubas made. I think we had like 7 to 9 picks in the draft this year. And, that's all well and good.
Right.
But that's going to be a 3-year project for any of them to make the big club, probably, especially the lower picks, the later rounds. Their first rounders might get there in 2. But like this dude's been shopping at Dollar Tree to try to build our team. And I'm just like, what are we doing? We still got Crosby. We still got Letang. We still got Carlson for the moment.
Is he having lunch with the Pirates owner?
Nah. No, Dubas will spend money. He don't got a problem spending money. It's how he spends it.
Okay, gotcha. I just wanted to check, make sure that
because they traded Nedeljkovic to San Jose for a pick. I mean, they're not really doing a whole lot, and like you got Raquel for I think $5 million a year. You got Rust at like 5.8 a year, and it wouldn't shock me come trade deadline this coming season that both of them are gone and they go full rebuild. And if that's the case, they may wait till after the Olympics. I've been hearing rumblings that after the Olympics they're going to trade Crosby
to who?
Montreal. So who knows?
Might put Montreal. Montreal, they made the playoffs against the Caps. They lost, what was that, 4 games to 1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's early yet. We'll see how all this shit stuff shakes out kind of thing. But, yeah.
Okay.
Teams are making some moves. Some are not. And a lot of these free agent signings are, a lot of guys that play in the minors and stuff like that. But, like, I did see like one of the big deals that I kind of saw trade wise was Buffalo. What's the kid's name? Oh, will you shut up? Every time I click on that damn thing. JJ Petereka. I'm probably saying that wrong, but he got traded to Utah, and Utah in return sent Josh Doan, which is Shane Doan's kid that played his entire career for them in Arizona, etc. And Michael Kesselring, the defenseman, go to Buffalo.
Can I just double back around to? I know you're talking about players. Shout out to the Utah. Shout out to the guy that owns the Utah Jazz and the Utah hockey team.
Mammoth now. It's the Mammoth now. They actually have a name.
That's right, the Mammoth. I've seen something on YouTube where I want to get the guy's name right, but they actually was showing how they're basically just gutting the Delta Center where the Mammoth and the Jazz play at, and making it where it'll be conducive for both basketball and hockey. I believe they're raising the ice and the court level up about 24 feet. I think they said something like that. Because there was really wasn't made for hockey, and I think behind one of the goalies, it's like it was crazy how
it's like Brooklyn.
Yes, at the time it really wasn't. The center, the scoreboard, and the middle scoreboard was all centered to the kill. So they're gutting it this summer, and it should be ready for the 2025, 2026 NBA and NHL season, man. So shout out to the owner. He's got, I guess, plenty of money. So they're redoing it. I forgot the Delta Center was built in the late 90s or early 2000s. I don't put my head to it right now, but shout out to them. I just wanted to point that out there.
Yeah. But that was like one of the things I said watching games from there. If you had the seats by the face-off dot, you were like 10 feet above the face-off dot where that row came around, and like I guarantee you could hear everything that was said on the ice between players because they were above the glass. And like, as a hockey fan, that would absolutely be the seats if I was the season ticket holder that I would be buying. Because not only can you see everything, but you can also hear everything. You can hear them talk junk and everything. So, yeah, I knew that was kind of the deal with the owner. That he said that, yeah, we're going to play this year in here, and then in the off season we're going to redo everything to make sure it's right.
Well, kudos to them. Kudos to them. Definitely. I was going to read some if my thing works here. Real quick, the renovation overview, and this is straight from the PR department for the Utah Mammoth. The Smith Entertainment Group, SCG, has launched a multi-phase, multi-year renovation to fully convert Delta Center into a dual-use NBA and NHL arena, anchoring both the Jazz and the Mammoth. They're aiming to enhance both game night atmosphere and concert experience. The arena will get a revamped entrance, outdoor plaza, and major interior upgrades. This summer, they're concentrating in phase one, an innovative retractable seating system, first ever system in a dual-use arena, adjusts for 12 feet variance between rink and court baselines. Basketball mode, 29 rows of steep risers extending 28 feet. I was short by 4 feet. From concourse to court, preserving the intimate Jazz atmosphere. And then in hockey mode, all lower bowl seats will fully enjoy ice views starting in 2025, 26 seasons. So, Dan, they took away that thing you was talking about, which adds capacity behind the goalie and near event tunnels. And then the capacity will change from 11,131 seats, increasing to 18,206. So they went from 17,000 to 18,206. And at the end of the second phase, they'll be at 19,000. The bowl was extended 12 feet at each end, floor raised 2 feet to improve sight lines. Level 1 premium spaces, and then they added some restrooms, and then they're gonna do some construction on some garages this year. Then next phase, an east-facing main entrance in the plaza, upper bowl seating renovations, and improved concourses, enhanced premium suites, scoreboard upgrades, and iconic outdoor gathering space. The upgraded line with a broader vision to redevelop downtown Salt Lake City into a vibrant sports entertainment and convention district, connecting Delta Center to the Salt Palace Convention Center. So, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, if you live in a place where they have pro sports, this is what they're aiming for. They want some kind of entertainment plaza. They're doing it in Atlanta, I think, Washington D.C., where they're bringing the Commanders back to the district. And on the old site of RK Stadium, they're going to do some same thing with a plaza there with the stadium, and they're going to have apartments and all that stuff. So that's the new thing. That's the new gig now. What they're doing. So I just wanted to bring that up about the Utah Mammoth. I wish they would have got the name. What's the name that we said we wanted, Dan?
The Yeti.
And they couldn't work it out with Yeti. Yeti wanted a lot.
But I do appreciate that owner, because I saw when he got the team, I think he was on McAfee talking about it, and like him and his family had big visions for both of the teams in the Delta Center. And like you said, before they moved from Arizona, the last ditch plan that the owner had, that's what they were going to do, build the stadium. And then there was going to be a bunch of shops and restaurants in like a whole plaza or around the whole thing. So like you said, they're trying to make it to where it's like a one-stop thing. Come and eat before the game, come watch the game, go buy, your souvenirs or clothes or whatever you want to buy. There's shops, there's everything you could possibly need within like a 3-block area.
Gotcha. Makes sense to me. Makes sense. Dan, have you heard any, before I let you go, or before we go, I should say, have you heard any like these expansion rumors for the NHL? Your thoughts of it?
Well,
you're rolling your eyes.
No. I'm trying to think. Like, I think Atlanta has a really good shot at it.
Now, you really don't like this Atlanta thing, and
I guess the third time's the charm, right?
You
got to figure out where to put it, where the people actually come.
So a guy who has been to Atlanta and watched different sport events. Excuse me. You know, I've been to Turner Field. I've been to State Farm Arena where the Hawks and the aforementioned Atlanta Thrashers used to play at. And it's hard to get to those places, man. The traffic is awful. That's why the Braves moved up north, and where they're kind of in the suburbs, right? I mean, they're not exactly in DeKalb County anymore. I mean, excuse me, Fulton County anymore. So they're right outside of it, and it's just they got that entertainment complex that everybody's wanting. So traffic was just off. So I guess third time's a charm, right? Wherever they build it.
I mean,
you know,
that's what good old G man wants to do. That's what they're gonna do. You know, that's where they're gonna put them.
What about Houston?
I don't know, man. There's a lot of Midwestern areas that would probably do really well with hockey. It's just, you know, who comes up with the better proposal, you know what I mean? And what they want to do, how they want to do it, and that kind of thing that will benefit the NHL.
Right.
Because these teams coming in this year or this new expansion, I would have to guess that the buy-in's got to be at least $1 billion.
Jeez.
Because I forget who the last one was, but it was steep. And it's been like, well, Seattle.
Right.
And that was probably close to $1 billion. It was several million. But now, you know, it's what, this will be their third year coming up, or fourth year? I think third.
Third year.
So they're probably not going to add these teams this year. It probably won't be till next year. So you're looking, you know, 4-year difference. That, yeah, it's going to be a pretty penny to get your franchise.
In your opinion, do you think it's too much?
Not really. I mean,
as far as diluting players and, you know, competition and stuff.
No, because now, like back in the day, it was USA, Canada, and a few Euros. But now you have so many European players,
correct,
across the globe.
Swedes, Russians,
whether it's Sweden, Russia, you know, any of those, you know, Switzerland,
yeah,
you know, Belgium, Czechoslovakia. I mean, there's a whole nother plethora of players that you could field probably 5 new teams and not really dilute the talent level.
Okay, that was my concern. And this is from Yahoo Sports, and this is why I wanted this. And this was an article from last year from Spencer Garrett, and he was talking to Bettman, and he said some of the, not Bettman said this, but some of the mentions that the cities he mentioned in the article were Quebec City, Houston, New Orleans, and Atlanta. Okay, so my opinion, Atlanta. Okay, it looks like y'all gonna give it another try. All right, and after this, man, it's if it don't work, man, it doesn't work.
Yeah, like if it bombs this time, it's just time to put the plug in.
Yeah,
and call it a day. That hockey's not meant to be.
I know you people in Atlanta, or, you know, who love Atlanta hockey. I mean, don't hate.
We're not hating on it. We're just saying that
we're just talking reality. I like I said,
there's so many other great cities that deserve the opportunity to have a team.
They mentioned Quebec City. I told you that's my favorite. I love their uniform.
The Nordiques. Like here's the thing. You want to have go down a rabbit hole, go on YouTube and search Montreal Canadiens versus the Quebec Nordiques playoffs in like early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see some of the wildest stuff you'll ever see, like entire line brawls, like entire team brawl in warm-ups where there's no referees or anybody on the ice to break anything up. So that's a real rivalry, those two. Will they get a team? I don't know. But I'm in the camp that, like, I get it, you want to put as many teams as you can in the United States, blah, 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 whatever. But you still have to expand the Canadian market.
Yes. If I was Bettman, I would do Quebec and I would do Atlanta, and Houston is like a huge city. Houston is the top 5 cities in the United States. But New Orleans was on that list. I've been to New Orleans. I've talked to the natives in New Orleans. They don't even pay attention to the Pelicans. It's all about the Saints. So I'm just telling you what the natives told me.
I was going to say, if you win, you'll have fans. But
Yeah, well, yeah.
how long did the Saints go without winning?
Who that? And they wore bags over their head for a very long time.
They had fans, but
so New Orleans people don't come. I'm just telling you, when I was there in October, y'all told me. I rode in these Ubers and Lyfts, and it's like nobody even pay attention to the Pelicans, bro. They had Zion. Zion pretty much just ate himself out of New Orleans, it looks like. So, yeah. Dan, before you go, tell us about your experience when you went to the Checkers championship game.
Bro, like, I'm just going to say this. So I went to, I think me and Lackey went to
Shout out to be back.
The series prior to the Cup Finals. I think it was game 2. And they end up winning that game. And like the place, I remember when I went in 19, because at the time in 19 I had season tickets, or my buddy had season tickets, and I would go with him, and they won the Cup that year, and it was pretty packed out. But when we went this last couple games, it was crazy packed. But that whole series with Abbotsford Canucks, which obviously is Vancouver's farm team.
AAA team. Do they call it? They call it AAA?
No, it's the AHL.
Okay, AHL. Okay.
American Hockey League.
But it's considered AAA hockey. If we was going to do,
it'd be like the minor league to baseball.
All right,
like
okay.
where they get called up from.
All right.
So, game 1 of that series, they go to overtime, and I sent you the video.
Yes, that's why I need you to recap this.
So, here's my understanding how the rules work, right? The opposing team, it's a face-off in their end. The center for that team skates up to the face-off, puts his stick down, which they have to do, or they won't drop the puck. So he does that. The checker guy comes in. He puts his stick down. We're good to go. The linesman drops the puck. The puck squirts into the goal. The key part is the goalie has his mask pulled up, drinking water, facing the glass behind the net, not even looking at the play. And I don't know what bullshit they called to say that was not a goal, because it absolutely was. Nobody infringed on the face-off. It wasn't like someone cheated on the face-off. Nobody moved. They dropped the puck. Boom, it goes in the net. Game over. And I don't know what rule, or basically it was the linesman's fault. He should have looked and saw that the goalie had his back to the play and been like, hey, yo, back out. Your goalie's not ready. Nope. He drops the puck. Boom, it goes in the net. Game over. I don't care whose fault it is. That game is over. Because the opposing team skated in and did what he needed to do.
Did we lose Dan?
Have that face off. So,
okay.
But I'm like, that, I don't care what planet you're on or what league of hockey you're in. It's the job of the face-off guy from the Canucks to make sure everybody's ready before he skates into that circle.
Yeah.
That's on him.
Tilts his head up. Hey, you ready? You ready?
Or looks back and goes, oh, hold up, linesman. Can I wait till my goalie's ready?
Yeah, my goalie's drinking Gatorade, so
yeah, so that was just complete bullshit. And then I forget how the series went, but it's a 2-3-2 format. So they go back to Vancouver, Abbotsford, and they had to win game 5 to bring it back to Charlotte. In that, another crazy ass goal. So, Jesse Puljujarvi, who played in the NHL and signed with the Florida and went to the AHL to play, is behind the net. He tries to pass it to. He's right-handed, so he tries to forehand pass to the near side. It hits the defenseman's skate for Abbotsford, bounces across the crease, hits the other defenseman's toe of his skate, and goes in the net. Game over, overtime. So they win that, and they bring it back to Charlotte for Game 6, and that's the game that I went to. They were whooping the wheels off of them for the first 17 minutes, and then it was a play behind the net on Charlotte's side. The puck pops up in the air, and I have no idea why you do this. The puck's over your head. Nobody can score when the puck is up there, because if you hit it with the stick, it's a high stick. So Carrick, who plays for the Checkers, decides, well, I'm just going to swat that out of the air. Well, his ass swatted it over the netting, which was a delay game.
Yep.
They get the power play with 2.5 minutes left in the first period. And immediately Sammy Blais, I think who played for St. Louis Blues in the NHL, just ripped one top shelf off the post and in to make it 2-1. They go into the intermission. And from that point on, the Checkers were done. Because I was texting in the you guys were doing it. You guys were doing a show that night, and I was texting. I'm like, they're cooked. They lost all that momentum, and then the Abbotsford scored the next 2 goals, and they end up winning 3-2 to win the Calder Cup. And shout out to them. They played a great series. I watched a couple of games because NHL Network, thankfully, they decided to put those games on the NHL Network.
Good for them. Kudos to them.
So you could watch because the AHL is on like Flow TV or something.
Correct.
And you can't really get it unless you get that package. Not even on said Amazon thing. It's not on there. But they played a great series. They deserve to win. Just some crazy stuff that happened in that entire series that was just like, one, they score a goal like off the face off and the goalie's not ready. They call it back. Puljujarvi's, trick shot off 2 defensemen skates. Like, he couldn't have tried to do that and have it go any better. Like that was just insane.
Right.
And then, like I said, like once they gave that power play goal, they got on their heels. The momentum was gone, and it was lights out for Game 6. But shout out to the Checkers; they had a great year.
The fact that they had the building packed out.
Yeah, it was insane.
Shout out to the city of Charlotte, man, for doing their thing, man. So, and I believe that's the minor league affiliate of the Florida Panthers.
Yeah. So if they would have won, they would have won the NHL Cup and the Calder Cup. But it is what it is.
That's a good thing, man. Dan, if that will be all, that's that all you got, Dan? For
That's
us?
all I got.
I can only play this on it. Remember, I forgot to introduce. As you can see, scroll down at the bottom. This is a new show segment. It's called the Ice Cold Facts with Dan K, the hockey dude. So we will have the NHL wrap up. So we'll have this when we doing standalone shows like that, and it'll also be a segment on the regular Thursday night and Monday night shows. But since we had so much to get into, and Dan's been on vacation, we had to do this today. So this is, I guess, the first inaugural show of the episode of the Ice Cold Facts, the NHL wrap up, and I've been told by DA I can't play this no more on the other shows. Oh, now I didn't even do it. Hold on. Look at that. I tried to play the horn, and they wouldn't even let me play the horn. Hold on. I'm mad now. Why won't let me play the horn?
DA hacked your stuff.
DA he did call me when I was trying to.
He said, "I got you."
Yeah,
you ain't playing that horn.
No, it won't let me play the Penguins horn. Okay, all right. So I just did an update before I came on here, so maybe that was it. So That's it, Dan. Anything else, man? I'm glad you brought my brother. Thank you so much, man. This was great as always, man. Make sure you like, click, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the bells for all the notifications to get all this wonderful content. We appreciate for those that's been rocking with us, the Sports Chasers, man. So bigger and better things when it comes. And that's all you got. Dan, before you go, I'll let you have the last words before we get out of here, sir.
No, man, just want to say it's glad to be back. Great to be back. Missed it, but sometimes real life happens and you got to deal with stuff. But hopefully going forward, that will tame down, and the adult daycare will calm down as well, where I can make some more episodes.
Yeah.
But we got some free time, for hockey for a while. So I guess I'll just, annoy everybody with my WNBA takes.
Before, man,
did you see why did not Atlanta, but Washington and Chicago play at 11:30 a.m. today?
I saw that on my phone. I thought
the only thing I can think of is Kids Day, because they're out of school, that all the young girls and boys can come where they can watch a game in the afternoon.
You know what? I think because they had that last year. That's
why I was thinking that. But I did see a certain somebody get highly upset and slap the clipboard that has the cord on it out of the assistant's hand as they were going to the bench. And I'm like, somebody needs to have that person grow up.
Yeah.
That's all. And hey, we're what? A week away from WNBA All-Stars.
WNBA All-Stars.
I believe they're picking the team tonight, but they're probably not going to tell anybody until tomorrow because that's how they roll.
I wanted that to be live.
Yeah, I did too. But before we get out of here, I just have a question on that note. So there is another league for the women that runs.
Dan, you was talking to me. You was in me and D-Dub's conversation today. Go ahead.
That starts like November or so. And it's 3-on-3. And the co-founders of the league are the president and the vice president of the Players Association of the WNBA. So my question is, how is that not a conflict
of interest? I swear to you, you must have had a bug in my car on my way home from the JOB because me and D-Dub were discussing that. Because I told him, and he was like, "Yo, Kev, how's that even possible? That's not right." I says, if there was anybody else, I don't know. We'll discuss it, man. But that is absolutely a conflict of interest. And I don't know how they can say, somebody might say, well, it's a 3-on-3 tournament. Who's to say they can turn that into a 5-on-5?
Yeah. And now you can have a bunch more players come to the league now that it kind of was somewhat successful last year, and you'll have more sponsors, more money, TV money. Now we can just play 5-on-5.
Hey, if
not to open the can of worms.
The can of worms.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Can of worms are open. If you got Jimmy, police officer, he works at Laurel Hill Police Department, and then he goes to Mammoth Hill Police Department. He can't work at both. He's got to pick one or the other. It comes a conflict of interest. I'm with you. I promise you. I just discussed that on my way home from D-Dubs, and he was like, "What the?"
Yep, I'm agreeing.
How is that? He said, "We'll get into that." He said, "Kev, it's
a shame I got to work Monday."
Well, we might save it for you Thursday too, man. So, because that's some questions we need to answer. So, anyway, this was NHL Talk. Is my button working? Does my DA still doesn't want my button, my horn to work here, man? But Dan, appreciate you, man. We're gonna get on out of here on this note, man. Hey, this is the Sports Chasers podcast, man. Y'all be good, be great, man. And we'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Sports Chasers podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms, and connect with us on all social media channels for exclusive content and updates. We'd also love for you to join the conversation, share your thoughts, and become part of the Sports Chasers community. And remember to tune in next time for some more real sports talk. Until then, stay frosty.